Good evening and welcome to the Free Speech America Gala Virtual Edition. We're glad you could join us. We're here tonight to celebrate the Media Institute and the important work it does to advance a competitive media environment, promote freedom of speech, and support excellence in journalism. This evening we will recognize 3 distinguished individuals who have spent their careers working to further these fundamental values. Our gala also celebrates Free Speech Week, which is taking place right now. Every year during the 3rd week of October, Free Speech Week recognizes our First Amendment guarantees of free speech and a free press with no partisan, political, or ideological agenda. The Media Institute created Free Speech Week 16 years ago as a way to help all Americans appreciate and celebrate these precious freedoms. The Media Institute is grateful to our gala sponsors who made tonight's virtual festivities possible. We thank our platinum sponsor, AT&T. We thank our gold sponsors, Comcast NBC Universal, Covington & Burling LLP, Discovery Communications, LG Electronics USA and Zenith, NCTA, the Internet and Television Association, T-Mobile, and Verizon. We thank our silver sponsors, America's Public Television Stations, the Advanced Television Systems Committee, Beasley Media Group, Charter Communications, CTIA, Fox Corporation, Harris, Wiltshire and Grannis LLP, Hogan Lovells, iHeartMedia Inc., Interactive Advertising Bureau, Lerman Center PLLC, Microsoft Corporation, the National Association of Broadcasters, News Media Alliance, Sinclair Broadcast Group, Tegna Inc., U.S. Telecom, the Broadband Association, Viacom CBS Inc., and Wiley Rhine LLP. And thanks also to Wilkinson Barker Nauer LLP for their video salute. We're grateful to the National Association of Broadcasters for providing our Washington recording location. Our sponsors are enjoying dinner wine this evening provided by the Knightsbridge Wine Shop through the generosity of John and Kim Taylor. And we thank Arlen Communications for producing this video presentation. Now we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's Free Speech America Gala. Thank you again for watching and saluting our honorees, and thank you for supporting the Media Institute.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. My name is Rick Kaplar, and I'm the president of the Media Institute. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you here tonight to our virtual Free Speech America Gala. This is our 2nd virtual gala, so I hope you'll enjoy being with us from the comfort of your own home once again. One of these years, we'll be back together in person, but until then, thank you for joining us virtually. We're coming to you tonight from the conference facilities at the beautiful headquarters of the National Association of Broadcasters on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. We'd like to thank Senator Gordon Smith and all of our friends here at the NAB who have graciously invited us to use these wonderful facilities to bring you tonight's gala. For those of you who might not be familiar with us, the Media Institute is a nonprofit foundation that pursues 3 important goals: sound communications policy, a strong First Amendment, and excellence in journalism. We've been dealing with this pandemic for a year and a half now, and we have continued to adapt to this ongoing reality. We've continued to hold our Communications Forum luncheons as virtual events, and we'll keep these virtual through the end of this year. we've been able to bring our luncheon sponsors some first-rate speakers from government and industry throughout the year in this online format. We have continued to strengthen our online presence in other ways as well. Our Media and Communications Policy blog site is publishing very thoughtful articles on the First Amendment and other timely issues in the media realm. And I'm happy to say that former FCC Commissioner Michael O'Reilly joined us this year as a senior fellow and a member of our First Amendment Advisory Council. Our Digital Media Center has completed its first year of operation under the direction of our distinguished fellow Stuart Brotman. We published our first issue brief and first white paper and have partnered with a leading research organization in support of their conferences on the future of video. The Digital Media Center is an important program of the Institute, and there's much more to come. And we just announced a new collaboration with Federal Hall in New York City. Federal Hall is a historic structure with deep roots in the creation of the U.S. Constitution, and it also boasts many First Amendment milestones, such as being the site of the famous John Peter Zenger First Amendment trial. We hope to work with Federal Hall on programs here and in New York that will promote the First Amendment and bring it to life for a new generation. And in the process, we hope to honor the memory of our board member and dear friend Kurt Wimmer, who had strong ties to both of our organizations. In short, the Media Institute has faced many challenges because of the pandemic. We've had to deal with the challenges in fundraising and in program delivery. But in spite of this, we've stayed the course. We have overcome obstacles, and we've pursued new programs and new opportunities. But we've been able to do this only because of our financial contributors. Right now, I'd like to thank all of our Gala sponsors. I wasn't kidding about the challenges in fundraising. Your support of our virtual Gala tonight is extremely important to our financial well-being. In fact, we wouldn't be able to keep the Institute going without a successful Gala. So we're especially grateful to you, our sponsors, for supporting us financially tonight. And a special thank you to our platinum sponsor, AT&T. We appreciate the vote of confidence that all of you have given us, and we will keep working hard to merit your support. I'd also like to thank the Knightsbridge Wine Shop in Northbrook, Illinois, and our board member, John Taylor, and his wife, Kim, for collaborating to provide the dinner wine that was delivered to our sponsors in the DC area tonight. Thank you for your generosity, John and Kim. Many thanks to Dave Arland and the team at Arland Communications for producing tonight's event. And of course, I'd like to recognize my colleague, Susanna Cotto, for everything she's done to make this evening possible. And many thanks to Anna Yan and Kimberly Falkenhagen. Tonight's gala falls right in the middle of Free Speech Week, and that's what we're celebrating tonight. We're very fortunate to have three distinguished awardees, William Kennard, Norah O'Donnell, and Senator Gordon Smith. All of them have worked in their own ways in government service, in the field of journalism, and in the media industry to foster freedom of speech, a robust press, and a vibrant communications industry. We thank Bill and Norah and their presenters, Randall Stephenson and Gayle King. And our special thanks to Senator Gordon Smith for accepting our Lifetime Achievement Award and for being our featured speaker. We're honored to have all of them with us here tonight on this very memorable evening. And we're certainly honored to welcome our distinguished Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Dick Wiley. Dick is a co-founder of Wiley Ryan LLP, a law firm with one of the largest communications practices in the United States. In the 1970s, he was general counsel, a commissioner, and then chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. Since then, he has been one of Washington's most highly respected attorneys. And of course, Dick has served with distinction for many years as the Media Institute's chairman of the board. I want to thank Dick for his deep commitment to the Institute and for his outstanding leadership and support. He makes my job a lot easier. It is now my great privilege to turn the program over to our friend and colleague. Ladies and gentlemen, our Master of Ceremonies, the Chairman of the Board, Mr. Dick Wiley.
Rick, thank you very much for those kind remarks. And in turn, let me congratulate you on your inspired leadership of our Institute. 10 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, Randall Stephenson, then the chairman and chief executive officer of AT&T, was our honored recipient of the American Horizon Award. And tonight, we're pleased to welcome him back to confer that very same recognition on someone he knows well, as do so many of us. During Mr. Stephenson's distinguished 13-year tenure at the helm of AT&T, the company was a world leader in the telephone, media, and telecommunications space, with revenues in 2019 of over $180 billion, all of which, of course, led the way to today's 5G era, with advanced high-capacity wireless and fiber networks being provided by AT&T and other leading carriers. But our guest was also intent on ensuring that his company would be a world leader in philanthropic, educational, and diversity inclusion initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to introduce once again Randall Stephenson.
Thanks, Dick. It's an honor to present the American Horizon Award to my friend, Bill Kennard. Bill and I spent several years working side by side on the AT&T Board of Directors. And when I stepped down as chairman of AT&T earlier this year, I was thrilled when Bill was elected to replace me. There is nobody who brings more experience and knowledge in the media and communications industry than Bill Kennard. He's one of the best minds in the business. President Obama appointed him as the United States ambassador to the European Union, and Bill Clinton appointed him as chairman of the FCC. In each of those roles, he received broad endorsements from government and business leaders. In fact, the American Chamber of Commerce to the European Union awarded Ambassador Kennard the Transatlantic Business Award, the organization's highest honor. And U.S. News & World Report called Chairman Kennard a consumer champion for the digital age. Whether serving as an ambassador or the top regulator over media and communications, Bill designed and pursued policies with three overriding objectives: drive up competition, stimulate investment, and bring the benefits of the digital age to everyone. As a business leader investing billions of dollars, you couldn't expect more from your regulator than such clarity of purpose and consistency in his oversight. And that is what Bill brought. His effectiveness as a policymaker was obviously shaped by his own real-world experiences from investing in these industries, whether leading private equity investments at the Carlyle Group or founding and leading his own asset management company. Bill has always appreciated the important role media and communications play in our society, even before the technologies we enjoy today were widely deployed. Back in the 1990s, when he served as chairman of the FCC, he predicted a world with real-time video calls, movie downloads in minutes, and browsing web pages as quickly as we change a TV channel. Those were radical concepts in the 90s, but look where we are today. When the COVID pandemic hit in 2020, networks around the world were pressure tested by the sudden demands of unprecedented video conferencing from home. And the United States network stood tall because of the foresight and foundations laid at the very beginning of the digital age by the likes of Bill Kennard. I can think of nobody more deserving to be recognized for their contributions in supporting the vitality of American communications. So Bill, our congratulations, well deserved.
Thank you so much. I am deeply honored to receive this award, and even more so because it was presented by my friend and former colleague, Randall Stephenson. Randall is one of the most effective and inspiring leaders I have ever known, and having the opportunity to work with Randall has been an amazing gift. In fact, I got to tell you, sitting here today, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. You know, Forrest Gump famously said that life is a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Well, in my case, when I got out of college, I didn't have a clue about what I wanted to do with my life. So, like a lot of people who don't have a clue about what to do, I went off to law school. I came to Washington, D.C. to practice law, not because I was even sure I wanted to be a lawyer, but because I had become interested in communications policy and technology in college. And I had this vague sense that it might be interesting to do something at the intersection of law and communications policy. Now, remember, this was pre-internet, so this was way before telecom policy was cool. But I landed a job in a law firm in DC in the 1980s, and within a few years, I ended up getting a front row seat to what has become the most important technological revolution of our lifetimes. You know, through a series of completely unpredictable events, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to chair the FCC literally at the dawn of the internet. It was a chance to lead the FCC at a really special time. It was a time when government had an especially important role in shaping the rules and policies that would define investment and growth in the internet economy. You may have heard this quote by Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs told people on his team at Apple that they should strive to invent products that would put a dent in the universe. Put a dent in the universe. It's a great way of thinking about bringing ambition to your work every day. And those of us who are fortunate enough to work in telecom policy, we have that opportunity to put a dent in the universe. You know, all of us who work in this field have had the privilege of shaping the course of technologies that have profoundly changed the world. So how fortunate we have been that we can devote our careers to shaping something that literally defines this period in human history, the information age. Now, you know, we sometimes mark the beginning of that age as the commercialization of the internet in the mid-90s and the proliferation of wireless phones about that same time. That's what we all lived through. Today, I chair the board of AT&T. So it's been really interesting to be part of a company that has defined innovation in communications technology since the invention of the telephone. This was a company founded by Alexander Graham Bell in 1885 as the American Telegraph and Telephone Company. So think about it. And this is a company that time and again, day in and day out, year after year, has had to reinvent itself to stay on the cutting edge of innovation. For 136 years, to consistently retain its title as one of the world's leading communications companies. And the pace of innovation in our field today keeps accelerating with the advent of IoT and AI and VR and AVs and EVs and that whole alphabet soup of innovation that we are living through right now. All of it transforming our world at breakneck speed. I think it's more exciting than ever to be part of this field. Well, look, I have had opportunities in telecom that I could never have imagined. For me, it's been an amazing and just very fulfilling journey. So I am profoundly grateful for this award, for the recognition of my work. I'm grateful for the important work of the Media Institute. And I'm grateful to all of you for sharing this moment with me. So thank you all very, very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Tremont, the managing partner of Wilkins & Barker Knauer. We're honored to be sponsors of tonight's Media Institute event to honor our two great friends, Bill Kennard and Gordon Smith, who've done so much to defend our freedom of speech in our society.
To present our Freedom of Speech Award, we're privileged to have with us Gayle King, co-host of CBS Mornings. Ms. King first joined the network in 2011, and over the last decade, She has conducted numerous key interviews with world and national leaders and personalities, handled a wide variety of high-profile news assignments, and emceed multiple primetime specials. During her illustrious media career at CBS, Oprah Daily, SiriusXM, and as a longtime local station news anchor, she has received many well-earned recognitions, including notably 3 Emmys. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in a hearty welcome to Gayle King.
Good evening to you. I'm Gayle King from CBS Mornings. Now, the saying goes that if you actually want to know a person, you must walk a mile in their shoes. But believe me, if you really, really want to take a deep dive into someone's soul, you should sit in hair and makeup with them every morning, say 4:30, for 7 years. Norah O'Donnell and I did that. We caffeinated together through 1,445 episodes. I counted, give or take a vacation day. And during that time, I got to know who she is and what she truly cares about. At home, Norah is a daughter. She's a wife to Jeff Tracy. She's a mother to Riley, Henry, and Grace. She's a great mom. And she's a friend. At work, she is one thing and one thing only: a journalist who devoutly believes that a free, factual, and fiercely independent press is sacred to democracy. Throughout her very long career, and now as a CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor, Norah puts her journalistic integrity where her mouth is every single day. I've seen it. In the last year alone, her coverage of the pandemic, the 2020 elections, the storming of the Capitol, and her stunning, and stunning is a word, 18-month investigation into sexual assault and domestic violence in the military has again proven that speaking truth to power for all the world to witness is the #1 catalyst to genuine reform. In fact, Norah's reporting helped convince military and political leaders to publicly support groundbreaking changes in how the military deals with these cases. Congress has even drafted bipartisan legislation to put those changes into law. And I don't have to tell anyone who's listening to this what it takes to achieve bipartisan anything in 2021. So I'm not going to run down the entire list of Norah O'Donnell's greatest hits, and there are many, but I do want to point out that her regular interviews with scientists and public health experts throughout this pandemic has educated and calmed millions of Americans, me included. There are many days I would call Norah and say, "What is Dr. Fauci saying today?" And she would know. Norah was also the first journalist to sit down with Joe Biden when he became president. But the thing that strikes me most about Norah's work is that it's been a godsend to survivors of abuse. In fact, she received not 1, but 2 Emmys back in 2018 for her reporting on sexual assault at the U.S. Air Force Academy. More recently, she got that exclusive interview with Charlotte Bennett. She's one of the former staffers who alleged sexual harassment by former Governor Andrew Cuomo. And because she has always been acutely aware of how a society behaves towards its female population, Norah met with Malala Yousafzai after the fall of Afghanistan to focus attention on the future of women's rights in a country now ruled by the Taliban. Norah O'Donnell, I can tell you this, is a consummate storyteller. She knows how to show, she knows how to tell. She asks the hard questions, and she keeps asking and asking until she gets answers. I don't know how many of you remember that movie from a few years back. It was called The Post, where the marvelous Meryl Streep played the remarkable Katharine Graham. Norah and I talked about this movie a lot at the time, and there was a line in the movie that really hit home. One of the characters is explaining why the founding fathers felt the need to give the free press protection. And she says this in the movie: "The press was to serve the governed, not the governors." I love that line. Norah gets that. She serves at the pleasure of the truth. Her only allegiance is to the facts. She shines a light on the places that need to be illuminated, and she gives voice to the people who need to be heard. It's on behalf of those people that I'm really very honored to introduce the Media Institute's 2021 Freedom of Speech Award winner. That's you, Norah O'Donnell. Congratulations, and go you.
Well, thank you, Gayle, for that very kind introduction. As you know, I do believe that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. And Gayle, having you in my life has been a joy, and being able to sit at the table with you for so many years was such a privilege. So thank you. I also want to thank the Media Institute for awarding me the Freedom of Speech Award. I am so incredibly honored, and I'm very humbled by this recognition. Journalism is a calling and a passion, and I feel very fortunate to call it my career. I also want to thank CBS News, including our president, Neeraj Kemlani, and our DC bureau chief, Ingrid Cyprian-Matthews. They have given us the support to do the type of journalism that creates change in the world. You know, my parents actually taught me at a very young age that information and knowledge is power. And I think that's actually the message behind these awards. Journalism is imperative to a healthy democracy. Walter Cronkite, who was in this seat for 20 years. Well, not literally this seat, but you know what I mean. Well, Cronkite was considered the most trusted man in America. And he famously said, "Journalism is what we need to make democracy work." I tell people that a lot because it's a motto I live by. And Cronkite was right. But guess what? That idea originated with our country's founding. Our founding fathers enshrined the role of a free press within the Constitution. Yeah, they believed it was so important that they made it the very first amendment, not the 11th Amendment. They understood that the power of a free press and our role in holding leaders and the powerful accountable was so important. In fact, it was Thomas Jefferson who wrote, "Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." Clearly, they didn't have some of the newspapers then that they have today. But you understand, right? I mean, Jefferson felt so passionately about the importance of the press that he thought a government shouldn't exist without it. And I agree. Our country requires a knowledgeable electorate. And I believe it's journalist's job, a journalist's job, all of our jobs, to help inform people by getting answers and information. I've been lucky to sit across from decision makers and asking tough but fair questions for Americans. And as a journalist, it's my job to ask questions that further understanding. It's not about me. It's about the person I'm interviewing, about the audience, and about the issue at hand, and trying to further understanding. Today, journalism is more important than ever, especially in the era of 24-hour news cycle where people can't even agree on the facts. So it's vital that journalists provide information and not affirmation. I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say the past year and a half have been hard. We here have covered a pandemic, we've covered a social justice movement, a racial reckoning, an impeachment, an election, one that we're still talking about a year later, and of course, an insurrection and an assault on the beacon of our democracy, the U.S. Capitol. It's been exhausting. But we here at CBS and the CBS Evening News have not tired. This is when our work is most important and truly matters. And I look forward to fighting for Americans every day for years to come. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And congratulations again to our awardees, Bill Kennard and Norah O'Donnell. We now come to a special moment in tonight's gala. And in fact, it's a unique moment in the history of Media Institute galas. That's because we are about to make the first ever presentation of the Media Institute's Lifetime Achievement Award. I have to say that we could not have found a more deserving honoree. I'm speaking, of course, of Senator Gordon Smith, the President and CEO of the National Association of Broadcasters here in Washington. Senator Smith has served in that capacity with distinction since November of 2009. This past April, he announced that he would be retiring as president and CEO at the end of this year and shifting to an advisory role at NAB. We felt that tonight's gala would be the perfect opportunity at the perfect time to recognize Senator Smith's extraordinary career in both public service and the broadcasting industry. For more than a decade, Senator Smith has been the highly effective voice of television and radio broadcasters, representing their interests before the U.S. Congress, the FCC, and other governmental agencies. In addition, he has headed the NAB during one of the most challenging times in the history of broadcasting, a time when broadcasters have faced mounting pressures from streaming services and other digital platforms. and faced economic pressures that have threatened the bottom lines and even the very existence of many. And broadcasters have had to contend with all of this while still facing a higher level of government regulation than any other media. Through all of this, however, Gordon Smith has kept the broadcasting industry engaged, relevant, and positioned to become an even more vital source of local news, emergency information, and entertainment. And this has been no small task. Gordon's achievements on behalf of broadcasters might be reason enough for tonight's award. And I imagine that Gordon might have had moments when these last 12 years felt like a lifetime. But of course, these recent years are only one chapter in a very storied career. In 1996, Gordon was elected to the United States Senate from his home state of Oregon and went on to serve 2 terms. He was a member of the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, which oversees all broadcast-related legislation, and served as chairman of a Senate high-tech task force. He also served on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Foreign Relations Committee. Before his election to the U.S. Senate, Gordon was elected to the Oregon State Senate, rising to the position of president of that body after only 3 years. Throughout his career as an elected official and then as a leader of one of the country's major trade associations, Gordon served his constituents and was certainly responsive to their needs. But he did so in a way that served the larger interests of America, and in a way consistent with his own deeply held values, principles, and ethical standards. So tonight we recognize Gordon not only for everything he has achieved, but for the exemplary fashion in which he achieved it. I'm proud to say that Gordon has been a great friend of the Media Institute for these many years. He's been one of our most popular luncheon speakers. In 2013, he was the recipient of our American Horizon Award. And in 2019, he presented that American Horizon Award to Caroline Beasley. He will add a new title tonight as the featured speaker of our 2021 Gala. We regard Gordon as a strong supporter of the First Amendment and as someone who believes in the mission and values of the Media Institute. For all of these reasons, it is my sincere honor and privilege to present the Media Institute's first ever Lifetime Achievement Award to Senator Gordon Smith. Senator, congratulations.
Rick, thank you. I appreciate it so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to receive this Lifetime Achievement Award from the Media Institute, along with fellow honorees, former FCC Chairman Bill Kennard and Norah O'Donnell. I knew Norah when she was working a beat on Capitol Hill. I think it was for roll call, but now every evening to watch her anchor the CBS Evening News, I'm very proud of her. And she is my friend then and still. I haven't chosen to read a speech, but to outline a few of my thoughts to share them with you. A Lifetime Achievement Award has caused me to reflect back on a lifetime here, much of it spent in Washington, D.C., and reflect on how I came to be here and why I'm still here, but why I'm soon leaving. I was born in Pendleton, Oregon, to a father who was a food processor who accepted a job when I was 2 years old to serve in the staff of President Dwight Eisenhower. My mother, her last name, or maiden name, was Udall. And so you can say, in some sense, I was born to the battle of peas and policy and politics. And I have loved it. I have loved life. And I've loved my time in this great city of Washington, D.C. I suppose in my youth, the most exciting night was always election night, because around our dinner table, policy and politics were often the topic of discussion. I remember vividly when I was 8 years old, my mother awakening me on January the 20th, 1961, to tell me to dress warm because I and the family were going to the inauguration of President John F. Kennedy because our cousin, Stuart Udall, was becoming his Secretary of the Interior. I remember that occasion well. It went deep into my soul, not just the president's clarion call to a new generation of Americans to ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country. I remember the roar of the cannon. I remember his beautiful bride. And the whole occasion struck me as important, something praiseworthy, something to be aspired to, something to value. And so as I grew older and served as a paper boy for two newspapers that don't even exist today, the Washington Evening Star being one of those, and the Washington Daily News. But as a newspaper boy, I suppose I became a news addict. And I would read the headlines, and I'd read the stories, and I'd come home and I'd say to my mother, "Mama, did you read this story?" And she would often say, "Remember, Gordy, the best way to ruin a good story is to hear the other side." Never forgotten that. I never lost my passion for policy and hearing the other side. Because in politics, what you see, it kind of depends on where you sit, what you've experienced in life, and to respect that experience in others as you hope they will of your experience, to respect it and to value it. Well, whatever leads to a more perfect union was something I grew up aspiring and thinking of important. All my life I had, if you'd have asked me when I was 8 years old or 10 or 12 or 20, I would have, maybe I was an unusual kid, but I would have told you that I had this latent, nagging desire to be a U.S. Senator. Some people would, when I would share that with them, would look at me with some skepticism, I'm sure. But as I went on in life and became proficient in law and then successful in business, I began to have, as midlife crisis approached, this nagging boyhood aspiration to get into the arena. And I remember vividly, during the administration of President George Herbert Walker Bush, a billboard that someone had put up in Pendleton with the president's picture, and this must have been after the successful Iraq War and as part of the 1,000 Points of Light. There was next to his picture this quote. I went up and looked it up, because this is what the billboard said. Quote from President Bush: "There could be no definition of a successful life that does not include service to others. Find something to do. Get off the bench." That impacted me. I thought about it over and over again, and that led to my putting my hat in the ring for a state Senate seat. That ultimately led me to a U.S. Senate seat, which, against all odds, I held for 12 years. As part of policy and politics, the central plank in all of this and in my service was the First Amendment to the Constitution. Consider what it says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise there or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I love how that builds on itself. The two religion clauses really are about the freedom of conscience, the freedom to think and decide what you believe. And then building on that, if you're allowed to think and believe something for yourself, you need to be able to speak about it. And if you have the freedom to speak about it, you should be free to publish it. And if you want to publish it, you can then assemble people to your cause. And once you assemble them, you can redress grievances with government. You see how it all fits together, how central it is to our freedom as human beings, as American citizens. Conscience to speech, to publishing, to redressing, to assembling. That's called democracy. Well, one of the things that happens when you're nurtured at the knee of a Udall mother is always try and make the world a better place. Spend your time on earth to keep the second great commandment, which is to love your neighbor, to find ways to serve, just as President Bush was admonishing me to do from a distance on that road sign, that billboard. Well, when I left the Senate, I felt somewhat adrift and wondered what to do. I was privileged to work in the law offices of Covington and Burling, and doubly privileged when the National Association of Broadcasters reached out to me and invited me to be their CEO. Why? Because every day a broadcaster goes to work, he also goes to work as a public servant. He or she. And in this capacity as CEO of NAB, we run a big trade show. Sadly, COVID's canceled it a couple of times, but we have many visitors from South America, our hemisphere, the Southern Hemisphere, the Americas. They come to the NAB show, and they ask me to come and speak to their conference that was being held in the city, the ancient city of Montevideo, Uruguay. My broadcast host met me and my wife there and was giving me a tour of the ancient city of Montevideo. There used to be a big wall around the entirety of the community, but now there only stands in a park at the entrance of that ancient city, built 400 years ago by the Spanish. It's still a beautiful entry gate. And I noted the keystone that held it all together. During this visit and this tour, my host asked me what I was going to speak to them about. And I'm sure it was contemporary NAB issues. And when I explained that to him, he said, "Could you not speak to us about the First Amendment and the freedom of the press and speech?" And I said, "Why would you want me to speak to that?" And he said, "Because a lot of us who will come to this conference are 1 year and one election away from losing the freedom of the press." It was stunning to me. And as I thought about the pivotal role we at NAB, in newspapers, and the Media Institute have when it comes to freedom of the press, I thought of that keystone in that 400-year-old Spanish gate. That is the keystone upon which all of our rights hang. This is what Benjamin Franklin said: freedom of speech is a principal pillar, I'd call it a keystone, of a free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is then dissolved, and tyranny is elected on its ruins. Thomas Jefferson said, "Our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost." I like that. I believe that. And that's what this host was saying to me. Some of us may lose it unless we learn how to do our job to preserve it. Abraham Lincoln also once said, and I love this quote, I think it's important for us who love freedom of speech and freedom of the press to remember this. And there's no president in our history who is more vilified and attacked and abused than probably Abraham Lincoln during the most horrendous time of civil war and civil disruption and violence of our history. And yet Abraham Lincoln said, notwithstanding all the vilification, he said, "Let the people know the facts, and the country will be safe." Well, in this digital age where misinformation and fake news are running rampant on social media, I'm particularly honored and fortunate to stand with what survey after survey shows is the best source of finding the facts, and that's among radio and television broadcasters. I'm thankful for them that they've included me in their number for these 12 years. 12,000 radio and television stations. These people who go to work every day, yes, to earn a living, but more, to help their local communities and to give every local community and its people the facts so that they can decide. Thank you again for this tremendous recognition. It has been my great honor to work alongside of each of you to tell both sides of the story and thereby to protect our nation's keystone, the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. Thank you, and God bless you.
Senator Smith, thank you so much for your heartfelt,
Thank you, Rick.
inspiring comments.
Honored.
And congratulations on your life of service.
Thank you, my friend.
Incredible career, thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn the program back to our Master of Ceremonies, Dick Wiley.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program this evening. In closing, I want to thank our presenters, express congratulations to our wonderful award winners, and express appreciation to all of you for being with us. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.